FCO, NTDO 212, com check.
DPS, go. Inco, go. PUS, go. Surgeon, go. Booster, go. Copy that. We have a go from you guys.
This is talking sound.
The audio and video you are seeing right now is the amazing Jimy Bleu. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we will be stepping into the world of the tribute musician with the amazing Jimy Bleu and the Voodoo Child Revue. You know, I spent years as an in-house audio engineer, and cover bands were always some of my favorites, but more than anything, tribute bands. Bands that specifically focused around an artist. I worked with a great Prince tribute band for a long time, worked with a couple of Grateful Dead tribute bands. This is specifically a Jimi Hendrix tribute band, which in and of itself is some of the hardest technique, and really it's the style, it's the sound, it's everything that is so entirely hard to mimic and get right. And that's what we're going to be talking about tonight, folks, is that precision of musicianship that it takes. It's totally different than your standard band that's playing some cover tunes in a bar on a Friday night. So when we get back from this message from our sponsors, we will be talking to the amazing Jimy right after this. Have you considered starting a podcast? Looking for a way to make your business a voice of authority in an industry? Then Podcast Cadet is the solution for you. Whether starting a podcast for yourself, your brand, business, school, church, or just plain fun, Podcast Cadet is here to help you navigate the waters of the podcast industry. Specializing in one-on-one consultation and training with industry professionals in fields ranging from podcast technology and editing to distribution, monetization, and even social media strategies. Podcast Cadet tailors their services to the specific needs of you and your podcast. Do you already have a podcast and trying to find ways to engage and grow your audience? Sign up for your Podcast Cadet audit today and let us help you explore new and exciting ways to leverage your content and elevate your podcast brand to whole new levels. From consultational workshops to affordable podcast production and maintenance packages, Podcast Cadet is your one-stop shop for everything podcast related on the internet. Visit podcastcadet.com today to sign up for your consultation or training and use code TALKING20 to save 20% off your entire purchase. That website again is podcastcadet.com. That's right, folks. Stop on by Podcast Cadet today. They are your source for anything podcast related. You want anything Jimi Hendrix related? Our guest today is the man to talk to. Welcome to the show. How are you today, Jimy?
Hey there, Chris. Thanks for having me here. Appreciate it.
I am more than happy to have you here. I have been waiting for this interview since our good friend Mark Eddy introduced us. Shout out to you, buddy. Thank you for all the great people that you have connected me with over the last almost year now. It's been amazing. So you are one of the many that he has brought me. And like I said, I have spent the day kind of deep diving through your videos. And as somebody who spent almost 20 years as a live audio engineer, man, I am here to tell you, you got it. I'm sure you already know that. You've been doing this for a hot lick now, but you got it, man. Top to toe, front to back. It's hard, like I said in the intro, for somebody to absolutely nail a performance as somebody else. It's very hard. It's hard enough to do that, quote, as an impersonator, like a celebrity impersonator, walking around a room, talking to people. doing whatnot, much less to actively play guitar as well, to actively sing as well. Mind-blowing, Jimy.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that, Chris.
Well, let's get into it real quick and kind of tweak the knobs a little bit on your history. Let's start. How did you get into the world of music to begin with? Was this a family endeavor? Was it something that mom and dad did? Uncle bought you a drum set one day? How did you get into the world of music to begin with?
Yeah, it's a family thing, as you could say. My grandfather, from my grandfather, my mother, my father, all professional musicians, and so I guess I had no choice in the matter. You know what I mean? Coming up, being raised in a musical environment.
Yeah. I as well was surrounded by music, so it was something that whenever I went to follow that road in my life, artistically, it was encouraged, like 100%. It was like, oh, wow, Chris is making music. But what's funny, Jimy, is work-wise, it really wasn't. Was it that way for you? Like, were you artistically encouraged, but kind of discouraged from following it as a means of making a living, a means of, plying your trade and making an income, so to speak?
Well, at first, but then once, especially my mother, I'm a mama's boy. So once she found out that I really wanted to do this, she groomed me to apply for music school. So I went to music school. I went to music college. And yeah, but like I said, then after that, if you have no choice, you better make this work, because you can't go back and say, oh, okay, I made a mistake. Let me try something else. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, no. And
for me.
Well, and that's just it. It's one of those, you either make it or you break it.
Right.
And for me, I guess it was kind of the same journey. I went to school for something totally different than what I do now. I went to school for ministry years ago. So it is literally like 180 degrees from being a full-time audio video engineer. But for me, it was once I found the wires, I'd always been into playing with wires as a kid. Once I found my world in the engineering, the toys, the knobs, the faders, I was engrossed 100%. What was it that brought you into the world of playing guitar?
Actually, I went to the High School of Performing Arts in Manhattan from the movie Fame.
Mm-hmm.
And I got in playing trumpet and trombone. And then once I got into Hendrix in my beginning of the junior year, I switched my major to guitar.
Oh, wow.
And had to take the test again, but switched to guitar and focused on that. So that's how I got into really guitar playing.
Wow. So, yeah, it was something that you just kind of came upon in life. It's not like you were surrounded by guitar your entire life, anything like that.
Yeah, actually, my uncles, they all played. I noodled around with it, but it wasn't my main, I could do like little blues licks here and there. My uncle used to, when they came over to visit, sit down and drink and whatever, he would leave his guitar at the house, and I would like play it and mess around with, but I went into it because, at that time in, middle school, back then it was called junior high school, I was doing a James Brown tribute with a very popular local band, and that local band was opening for Kool and the Gang. We did open for the Ohio Players. We were kids,
Wow.
But I was doing James Brown, and that's where I thought I was going as a singer,
That's really interesting. And what was it about guitar because you said that you played trombone before that? And of course, we're going to the High School of Performing Arts, but what was it about when you found guitar that I guess resonated with you and pulled you down that now lifelong rabbit hole?
Well, there was a girl who came to school when I was in performing arts, and I was trying to get close to her, and she basically came to school one day with this big button, I think it was an orange button, that says the official Jimi Hendrix fan club Warner Reprise Records. And she was a groupie. She used to get in free to concerts whenever bands like Led Zeppelin, Yes, Grand Funk, whenever they come to town, she was a groupie, so she'd get in free. So I guess she was doing that with Hendrix. So I said, well, I figured if I, joined the fan club, I'd get close to her. It never happened, but I started to get more into Hendrix because at first I didn't think, I was more into soul, being a James Brown tribute person. I wasn't into rock.
Yeah.
I had seen Slade one time and, just went right by me. But I really wasn't into rock. And to me, Jimi Hendrix was black, so he wasn't rock at first. This is my thinking back then, you know what I mean? I was more into, once I got into rock, I was more into Clapton, Beck, Mark Farner from Grand Funk, Steve Howe. These guys were my heroes. I wanted the long hair and the whole thing. But what happened is we used to go to this guy's house and kind of like, how can you say, like smoke?
Yeah.
Okay. But we used to go there and hang out. That was our hangout after school. Yeah, partake. And so actually his father or his uncle came and caught us one time. And we're thinking, okay, this is the end. And he took us in his editing room. And he was a film editor. And he's actually the guy who's responsible, one of the cameramen who did the camera work for Monterey Pop Festival.
Oh, wow.
And he was showing us raw footage, unedited clips of Monterey. So I'm sitting there waiting for Otis Redding because I'm a singer. I'm like totally like, oh man, I can't wait to see Otis. He kept building it up to, oh, wait till you see Otis. He turns the show out. So finally, Jimmy came on, and I was like, I had never seen anybody hold the guitar like that. Other than just playing it, but just the way he held it and moved with it. Never seen that. That's what got me, the body movement and the way the sounds was coming out the guitar when he moved his body. And that sticks with me to this day because nobody plays guitar like that today.
Yep.
Now, they're great guitar players. Matter of fact, a lot of them back then could even play rings around Jimmy. And he had himself admitted that. But the coolness, the swag, I haven't seen it today.
Yeah. No.
So that's what drew me in,
I mean, quite honestly, probably the closest modern day equivalent might be the late, great Stevie Ray Vaughan. Might be. As far as stage presence in that way. Him and Prince. They have that, I guess, same kind of swagger on stage, where it's literally like the world is moving around them while they're playing. It's a totally different style of presence, totally different style of playing to begin with. And the sound that Jimmy had was something that was, I mean, people were using fuzz, distortion, even wah pedals, all kinds of stuff, but nothing sounded like that. And
it was like from another planet. Totally.
Yeah. Oh, quite literally. And he was such a transcendental player. He was one of those that when he played, it was like he was not physically there.
Yeah.
It was like he was somewhere else, in his own world, and everything came through him. He was such a conduit, for the muse. And what is it like for you? Whenever you play, whenever you get into process, so to speak, is it like a slow turn of a dial for you during the day before you have a show to get into the mode of Jimi Hendrix and get into that place to literally be able to channel that? and that same emotion and visceral feeling in the way that you play and hold and utilize the guitar. What's your process for that?
My process is I'm an actor. I'm playing Othello.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I get into character.
Yeah. I
go in the closet, pull the stuff out, get in the character, and then when I finish, come off stage, put it back in the closet. It's as simple as that. I'm an actor doing a role, and it just so happens that nobody has done Jimmy. So it's important for people to see the way he reinvented the way that the guitar is approached. That's number one.
Yeah.
That made even progressive and very technical guitar players respect this guy. I mean, you know, they saw him, they thought, oh, this guy's a joke. Get out of here. Plus he's pop. You know, they thinking, oh, he's pop. Nah, get out of here. But then once they heard, especially you listen to the first three albums, and you know, there's nobody playing guitar, like I said, like that today. Listen to the first three albums. There's nobody doing that today. Yeah. Even the people you mentioned, their albums, their first, especially the first album, nowhere near what happened with Jimmy's first album. And so folks need to see that. Folks need to hear that. Plus, folks need to see how the guy did it without any gimmicks, whatever, in-your-face manner. And that's why the tribute show Kiss the Sky is very important. Well, it's very important.
It is. It's hugely important because it really does encapsulate and capture moments in history and moments in time. Like you said, you as an actor, you're actively studying the footage of Monterey Pop. You're trying to do the same body movements during the same movements of the song. Things like that. And that's the beautiful thing about a proper tribute band, is that it takes that time. It takes that time to craft the image, the sound, the feel of what was going on. And you guys with Kiss the Sky have definitely done the footage and the feeling of Jimi Hendrix more than justice. That is all that I can say. How long have you guys been at this together as the three of y'all right now?
The three of us? What do you mean the three of us?
Well, I mean the band Kiss the Sky, the tribute band itself.
Okay, well, Kiss the Sky is not just the three of us. It's a Broadway play type production.
Oh.
Where we present the experience with two white guys who come out and play Noel and Mitch. Then there's a video, and we come out as the Band of Gypsies with two black guys, with Buddy Miles and Billy Cox. And sometimes at festivals, we come out with Jimmy had the 5-piece band at Woodstock, with the members who look exactly like the people who that Jimmy played with at Woodstock. Matter of fact, my blood brother, Juma Sultan, is one of Jimmy's sidemen at Woodstock, and sometimes he does gigs with me. So, I mean, and then we do the Cry of Love. We usually end it with the Cry of Love. He had Billy Cox and Mitch Mitchell. All this is a recreation. This is why it's a big mistake to call this and think this is a tribute. This goes way beyond tribute, because the main thing is because I was there. I was in Jimmy's fan club.
Yep.
Jimmy actually recommended or suggested to me Berklee College of Music, which, you know, he got on me to take the test at Berklee, which I did. And so he's responsible for me going there. So I was around him. He didn't quite know my name. Wait, hey, Jimy Bleu, he didn't know me like that. I was always with other members of the fan club. But he showed me a few things here and there. So I was there. You know, basically, I've been doing it since 1968. So this is way beyond a tribute, because you see, Jimmy himself never had the chance to put all of what I mentioned into one show. He only was around 3, maybe 4 years. Yeah. And that's what we do. So for the past, since 2016, I've been blessed to come upon the producer of Kiss the Sky, Mike Gotch, who has the same vision that I did. of putting together a Broadway type production, not just getting on stage playing Hendrix songs and putting on a wig or a hat,
Yeah.
but a full production of what this guy did because he was so important. There are other bands who do this. There's Ossie Floyd, he does Pink Floyd,
Yeah.
very successful. We do gigs sometimes with Zoso, who does Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
Same thing. These guys do exactly that. So when you do that, you're putting more into what the original artist put into their act.
Yeah.
When you do that, you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, and that's what I was saying is that at the beginning is that whenever you're doing tributes like this and this kind of stuff, it's a totally different realm because you have to study every single nuance of everything. You have to know the background behind the stories if possible. You have to know the background behind the songs to be able to write the fluid story that you're talking about and the narrative that you're trying to get across that is the history of Jimi Hendrix within those 4 years.
Yes. And this thing is so close that I've defied cease and desist orders.
Oh, wow.
I've defied bans.
I can imagine
actually being banned, being booked somewhere, and then a week later, oh no, gigs don't go, because this thing is, I don't want to say so good, but it's so, people describe me scary. You can't, there's no words for it when people see it. They try to look for a gimmick. They say, it's got to be a catch.
Yeah.
You can't, you know what I mean?
Yeah, he's triggering tracks or something like that.
Or there's somebody behind the curtain.
Yeah.
So the thing is, I'm just reiterating what is said to me during the meet and greets. People, they thanked me. Most of the people thanked me for doing this because it's never been done on Jimmy, but they're like, yikes, this is very scary.
Well, like I said, it is I've listened to his work smooth since I was 20, 21 years old, in depth, and I am 45. To watch you play is a study in Jimi Hendrix style, technique, presence, and once again, even sound. How is it that you go about? I mean, I don't want you to give away, not that there's any crazy trade tricks. There's tons of columns and blogs out there about how to attain that kind of sound. But what exactly are you using live most of the time? What's your go-to whenever you're out and about and playing? As far as amplifier, things like that.
We use what Jimmy used, basically, just, updated, of course. We don't use the same 1968 fuzz pedal, but it is Jimmy's fuzz pedal that he used, with today's, I guess you would say, wiring, whatever.
Yeah.
But let me tell you something. Jimmy played differently live than he played in the studio.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be very honest with you. I saw Jimmy quite often, and most of the time I saw him, he wasn't good. You know what I mean? I'm just being very honest with you. As compared to, I saw Chicago a few times. I saw Grand Funk 4 times. They were excellent all 4 times.
Yes.
I saw Yes. They were always impeccably good.
Yeah.
Jimmy, I can't say that about Hendrix.
Well, and granted, Jimmy was also one of those musicians, because I am a Rush and Pink Floyd are my two, and Rush was it's still to this day probably hands down the most consistent show, and I had the pleasure of being on road crew locally with them on a few shows. I think that they probably throughout my life of seeing and working shows had the most consistent sound as a band and the most consistent playing amongst the musicians, but that's also because they didn't play around. That's the thing about Jimmy, though, is that Jimmy got up there and he would improv gladly.
Yeah, experiment.
He wasn't afraid to literally jump off the edge of the performance and not have no idea where he's going to land. None.
That's a good way of putting it, Chris.
And
that's a really good way of putting it.
That's hard, and that's brave. That is so entirely brave as a musician. because like myself as a musician, I do a lot of electronic stuff, and I have incorporated a bit of improv into my set. Like I'm always playing to a set backing track, but what I'm playing live over it and the effects I'm performing are totally different every time, you know? Mm-hmm. Kind of like the Grateful Dead, where, hey, yeah, we got a 3.5 minute of Sugar Magnolia on an album. It may be 10 minutes live. But Jimy went to levels beyond that. He went to, like I said, levels of straight leaping off the edge of the performance, where it's like, even the band was like, where are you going? Because this is wild, you know? And it's amazing whenever you go back and see some of that footage, whenever you go back and hear some of those lost archival recordings of stuff like that. It's just mind-blowing improvisation and playing, hearing somebody literally have fun from the inside of themselves. It's some of the most beautiful tapestry of sound out there, in my opinion. How do you go about even replicating some of that feel, some of that raw energy of, I guess, just taking the performance somewhere else other than just the notes?
Well, Jimy approached rock music like the progressive jazz musicians that he admired. Rasan Kirk, he loved Coltrane for doing exactly what you described. Yeah. People like that. So he was putting that in a rock vein. That's why he had to have his drummer, Mitch Mitchell, who was a jazz drummer, really. And so that's why the whole thing worked a lot of times. Yeah. So that's, I'm basically doing the same thing. I have my Mitch Mitchell, who's the same guy studied Mitch, and so I approach the music in the same way. It's Jimy, like I said, he played a whole new way of incorporating sounds and body movement, but he also had a unique vocal style. Yeah. And a lot of it went to Dylan, but just the way he didn't quite sing, and he didn't quite rap. He just the way it just comes out is very unique. So it all worked into one package. And so that's what we try to do, bring that package in front of people.
And for you, as somebody, especially as you were saying, who was a vocalist to begin with, before you even started in with trombone, things like that, what was it like for you to try to emulate that so unique style of vocal of Jimy's?
Just studying, like I said earlier, as an actor. But just once I did that, I got into the music. I got into where he was going before he died, because the Jimi Hendrix of Monterey Pop is way different from the Jimi Hendrix before he died. He became spiritually involved. He involved spiritually and was going in a whole nother direction with the music. But with what I'm doing with Jimy, nothing this detailed has ever been done with any performer. Live, I perform the iconic periods of his life. I do lecture demonstrations in person and television about this guy. And his music, I can go into the studio and drums, bass, guitar, and vocals myself. Okay, like I said, this hasn't been done with any other artist, and that's because of where this guy was going with the music and what he did for music. And this is what is not studied. Matter of fact, if you go to musical colleges now, some of them may, like Berkeley, they even may have a course in Hendrix, let's say. This isn't brought up, what I just mentioned. That's not brought up. Yeah. Because they don't take his music seriously. You know what I mean? They think it's, okay, he's a good rock guitar player, a good rock musician. He took a lot of drugs. Boom, that's Jimi Hendrix story. And it's like, so this is very important what I'm doing. Not just with Kiss the Sky, but with this guy. This guy was very important to the music world. Yeah. He really was.
Well, he was.
Plus,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, please.
I was just going to say he was just like Bob Marley, this is very important, Chris. He was trying to bring races together. You notice how I say that slow, because it usually fleets by people. But
Yep.
he was the original Rainbow Coalition guy.
Yeah, man.
He wanted all races to come together. He tried to do that with his music. When you speak to his sidemen, which I've toured with his sidemen, I've spoke to them, done the research on this guy. That bothered him when he used to open the curtain and see mostly whites in the audience. He said, how can I, so his music evolved, just before he died, to incorporate more like Latin, Black, Asians, you know what I mean? So that was very important to him, and that's why he was dangerous to the powers that be.
Oh,
as soon as you
sure.
start doing that, you're dangerous.
Oh, most definitely. Just the message of unification that he had beyond the stage was phenomenal, and the force that he had within the counterculture movement at that time was more than a magnetic pull, let's say. He was definitely one of the icons of that movement, and it was everything about. There wasn't a single thing I think about Jimi Hendrix that was not apple cart upsetting. From the way that he played guitar, to the sound that he had, to the fact that he was kind of reclaiming rock music's roots.
Yeah, good point.
By bringing rock and roll back to almost the root of straight blues, and just bringing it to a whole new level at the same time. Now, I want to move the focus real quick from your musical prowess and the expertise that it takes to even come close to playing like Jimi Hendrix, much less embodying him when you play. I would like to get into a little bit of the lecture series that you have that goes with this, because I was reading about that and everything else. I did not realize that it was a complete performance series amongst all of it. Like you said, like a stage drama in addition to music, but there's also this lecture part. And like you were saying, like we were just on the topic of, he was such a pivot in music, and he turned the whole industry on its head again. Like the counterculture music had already done that, but when Jimi Hendrix came out, it even turned that on its head. Yes. And what has the lecture circuit been like for you? What has it been like for you to really deep dive into that research and to prepare being able to explain this not only to people of your generation who may be fans that, don't necessarily have the voluminous history of rock and roll and Jimi Hendrix that you do, as well as upcoming generations?
Well, I make it a point in my PowerPoint lecture, I call it lecture demonstrations, to include facts that are not in the bios or the documentaries on Jimi Hendrix. To one example, when Jimmy was charting on Billboard with the first 3 albums, you hear, matter of fact, before I even mention that, you'll hear a lot that Jimmy did not reach black people with his music and things like that. Well, when he was charting on Billboard with the first 3 albums, simultaneously, he was charting extremely high on Billboard's soul R&B charts with those same albums, and later on Band of Gypsies, and then the albums that preceded. So black people were very aware of Jimi Hendrix and his music. Don, who's the guy from Soul Train? Just the name.
Don Cornelius.
Don Cornelius from Soul Train, and New York DJ Frankie Crocker were working ceaselessly to get Jimi Hendrix played on black radio. They were really behind this guy. Actually, Frankie Crocker got behind my Hendrix show in the 80s. So this is how I know this. And yeah, those two guys were working, trying to get his music more to black people. So that's just one example. I mean, I can go on. Plus, the documentaries do not mention, they'll give a little talking head to one woman who's really responsible for the Jimi Hendrix we know about, and which is why we're talking about him today. And that's Linda Keith.
Yep.
Who was the girlfriend of Keith Richards as well. But she's the one who actually groomed Jimmy to get him presentable to the people she was bringing down to the gigs to see him for backing. She groomed it. I mean, Jimmy, if it was up to Jimmy, he'd get up there dressed almost any way he wanted and hardly sing because he didn't think he was a good singer. He'd sing now and then, but just to play. And she was like, no. Here, put this shirt on. You know what I mean? Here, put your hair like this. She actually curl his hair and all that and get him to sing more and got him presentable so that when a Chaz Chandler eventually came down out of the other people she brought down, they were actually able to see the package in its infant form. You know what I mean? She's responsible for that, and she's not given enough credit for that. So there's the little things like that is what I bring out. I mean, I go from his early years as a sideman, you know, all the way up. I talk about his spiritual potential, political affiliations. And you had mentioned to audiences today, I get a lot of young heads at my lectures, and I'll make it a point to tell them that, now, you know, Jimi Hendrix is on the first hip-hop record. And you should see the oohs and the ahs and the look that I get when I say that. But he is. He's documented as being on the first quote-unquote hip-hop record. It's a song called Doriela Du Fontaine, produced by Alan Douglas, who was working with Jimmy at that time. And Buddy Miles and Jimi Hendrix are on that, playing the music. And one of the last poets, which is a spoken word group, one of the last poets is actually rapping the way rappers do today on that record. So that can be considered the first actual hip hop record. So just those things I just mentioned to you, Chris, Google that and go look on documentaries and bios. You're not going to see that information. That's just to give you a taste.
Yeah. And now, before we let you go, I want to talk a little bit about New Divinity. What was it that brought you? Because of course you've had a career and a lifetime spent performing, recording with other people as well, and performing with other people. Like your bio and the people that you have played with are numerous and amazing. What brought you to start your own production company?
Well, yeah, you know, we were talking about that earlier. Everybody in the mother's company. So for musicians, it's a natural, you know what I mean? Yeah. Matter of fact, that's another thing Jimmy pioneered was the musician having his own recording studio.
Yes.
He pioneered that idea.
Yep.
So it was natural. I'm into the same teachings that Jimi Hendrix was involved in before he died. So that's where New Divinity comes from. And the Electric Ladyland concept that he embodied, which is dealing with female energy. You won't hear that in any other bios or documentary. They'll just say, oh, that's the name of an album. That was a concept for him of his muse, that female energy. I use that today with working with all female backup musicians. That's Jimmy's concept. That's where he was going with his music.
Yeah.
So that's where New Divinity comes from, that whole concept of that.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is about changing the space around you. I think Jimmy kind of had that concept with Electric Ladyland and his studio and that kind of stuff. Like the whole reason, whenever I've helped consult people with home studios, I was like, you have to make your home studio somewhere that not only is fun for you, but that welcomes you, that comforts you. Like you have to think of it in that old school concept of like the hearth, like in ancient Greece, where you had the hearth in the middle of the home, and that's where you invited the muse to come. But you had to make it a good place for the muse to want to be.
Oh,
and
wow, you getting deep, Chris.
I try, buddy. Like I said, I started in ministry and ended up mashing buttons for a living.
Wow.
but literally, it is that like you have to make it somewhere that you don't want to leave. You have to make it somewhere that you look forward to going to. You have to make it somewhere that workflow wise is as easy as possible, so that like it doesn't take you 30 minutes of setting up before you hit record. Like you can literally lose that inspirational moment just setting up. And that was, I think, one of the things that he was really, really keen on was that, hey man, whenever we're rehearsing, we're hitting record.
Yeah,
because you never know what's going to come out.
He made the mistake of thinking he was a producer after he left Chaz.
Oh yeah,
and so he wasn't. He was a great musician. What he did, but when he left Chaz, that was it, because that was a team. And matter of fact, he realized that before he died and begged Chaz to come back to him. And after a few times of Chaz saying, no, I'm busy, blah, 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 finally Chaz said, okay, send me the masters. Let's see what we're going to do. And Jimmy died.
Yeah.
So at least he was smart enough to realize that, okay, I need this guy, because that's another reason why we're speaking about Hendrix, is because of Chaz Chandler, the producer. Chaz was able to take all of that rawness of Jimmy, all of the noodling that he did, even when he was doing the first hour, all of that stuff, and put it into 3-minute gems. Because he was a producer, you know what I mean? He was with the Animals, so he was familiar with that. And that's why we love Jimi Hendrix from the first 3 albums, man. Those songs are incredible. Yeah. And they're progressive songs, if you really think about it. It's just that they're put into 3-minute pop gems. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And what's so interesting, you bring that up, is so often, so frequently, the producer is forgotten.
Yes.
Like one of my dream interviews in the world to this day, even with this show, it doesn't matter. Like I host 3 different shows. Alan Parsons, that man's brain for engineering and production is just such a faceted gem. It's so amazing, the body of work that he's produced. And we so often forget the fact that it is the work of the producer to hone and craft like that. That's one of the reasons why Dark Side of the Moon sounds the way it sounds, is Alan Parsons recorded and engineered that. He produced that.
Now, see, I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah. So if you go back into like a few early Floyd albums, he did a lot of engineering on. He did quite a bit of engineering over at Abbey Road Studios, Alan Parsons. So there was a lot of stuff from back in the day that came out of there that had his fingers on it. And those producers' fingers are like a fingerprint. Like you can hear that, much like being able to recognize like the guitar tone of Alex Lifeson from Rush. There are things like that are just distinct. And a prime example would even be Rush. Whenever Terry Brown left them, the sound totally changed. The way the mix sounded on the CDs, everything totally changed. Some people loved it, some people didn't. And it was, like you said, much the same way with Jimmy whenever he left. Some people loved it, some people didn't. And he realized that he needed that independent ear. He needed, he could create all day, but that was not his realm.
Yeah, and Lee Malone in the studio became a party. So, I used to have a radio show, an FM radio show, WFDU out of Teaneck, New Jersey. I had that for 12 years. And I was blessed to interview many celebrities, a lot of people I admired, but in particular, many people associated with Hendrix. And, you know, like you said earlier, that they would, you know, say, okay, send me 10 questions or whatever, and well, I'll see what I can do. Or their manager would say that. And then once they get a load of what I do, they'd be like, dude, I should be interviewing you. Sure. Take all the time you need. You know? So I've interviewed everybody associated who matters with Jimi Hendrix, as well as people with Slade, James Brown. I mean, I can go on and on, just the people. And when you mention Hendrix, there's always, you know, that was always in their heart. You know what I mean? They respect them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's really what it comes down to. Even in this interview with you, Jimmy, is respect. You got to be willing to put it where it belongs. And like myself as an engineer, as someone who's sat behind the console on the other side of the speakers for half my life, like I said earlier, hats off to you, man. You got it on all three sides of the triangle. You got it on presentation, style, and performance. Like, it's there on all sides. And it's really fantastic to see someone like you putting forth that effort to not only carry on a musical tradition and a musical styling to a new generation, but to go around and lecture to a new generation, to an older generation, and let them know, perhaps like we were saying earlier, the way things really were, you know, as well as telling a younger generation what could be possible if you take what he did to the next level.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Chris.
Hey, absolutely. One more time before we let you go, Jimmy, it is time for shameless self-promotion. Let everybody know where they can go to find out more about New Divinity, your production company, where they can go to hire you if they're looking for sound and film creation in the New York area, where they can go to find out more about Kiss the Sky and even book you guys to come out and do a recreation, stuff like that.
Okay, well, actually, the Hendrix show, that's kisstheskytribute.com, kisstheskytribute.com. All the information is there, reviews, tour dates, everything. And for New Divinity, that's New Divinity, S as in shine, F as in from, C as in consciousness. So that's New Divinity, SFC.com. And all the information is there, even information about myself.
Wow, fantastic. Jimmy, please do hold the line while we close things out. Once again, thank you so much for your time. It was incredible, man, to sit back and talk about one of the most amazing musicians ever to walk this earth, to ever grace a sound wave. And to talk to somebody the caliber of you who has spent the time and literally a lifetime knowing the man, researching the man, and emulating him to a T musically. Kudos to you. Thank you so much again for your time. Hold the line while we close things out. While you're online checking out once again everything over at New Divinity SFC, as well as kisstheskytribute.com. Make sure to stop on by the Talking Sound podcast, everybody. That is where you can find all the episodes. That's where you can find all the articles. Make sure to stop on by our sponsor, True Hemp Science,
Thank you
as
for
well.
tuning in to this episode of the Talking Sound podcast. For more episodes, industry news, and information, visit us online at TalkingSoundPodcast.com. Subscribe to the Talking Sound Podcast on Amazon Audible, Spotify, Spreaker, SoundCloud, iTunes, or your favorite podcast service. Get the latest Talking Sound videos on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Reach TV, or your Roku or Amazon Fire device with the APR TV app. Talking Sound is a proud member of the HC Universal Network family of podcasts. For more great shows and content, subscribe to hcuniversalnetwork.com today. Until next time, watch those meters, gig safely, and keep reaching for 11.
This is Talking Sound.